Welcome to another episode of The Beginner's Guide to AI. And again, it's Dietmar, not Professor Gleppard. But I hope I can make it up for you with having Kit Cox from Enate as a guest today. And he will talk about really interesting stuff AI can do for firms that have problems figuring certain stuff out, like finding 120 million on your account and not knowing where it comes from. You can't spend it because you don't know. You have to match it up with all the stuff. And AI can do that for you much better than people could. But before I talk too long here, let's start with the interview. I have today in my podcast Kit Cox. He's from Enate and he knows a lot about AI. But before I talk too much about him, I give the word to him because he can basically tell you more about himself than me. So, Kit, who are you and what do you do?
Hey, Dietmar, great to be talking to you. So, my name's Kit. I am the founder and CTO of Enate. So that means I look after all things technology and product that we take to market. And my background is I'm a manufacturing engineer by background and training. I'm a software developer initially as a hobby, which sounds somewhat tragic, but most people who are software developers did that as a hobby at some point. And then I turned that into my career and founded Enate as a software company in the automation industry. So that's my bit of background.
Great. Yeah. So software, you can't say it's not rocket science, but it's not manufacturing science, at least.
It's not manufacturing science. It is, but ironically, an awful lot of what we do. So yeah, my company is about bringing and operationalizing AI within the services industry, and an awful lot of running services is very similar to running great manufacturing systems. Yeah,
it's processes. It's about processes.
It's you're deep with inputs from your customers, and you're turning them into outputs. Yeah, just like you're dealing with goods in from in your bill of materials, and you're turning them into cars or washing machines or whatever. Yeah, it's information based rather than physical, but so many of the principles are the same.
Interesting. That comes to the point. I went to the website of Enate and I'm a little scared, and I see products and I don't know really what you do. Could you describe what you do there?
Oh yeah, sure. So our product is a product for running services, and it allows you to manage end-to-end workflows to deliver a service, but where you have some people involved in delivering the service, whether they're agents in a call center or in a back office, and different types of AI involved in delivering the service as well. Yeah, and as we get into talk about AI, you talk about there are different specific types of AI that are useful for different things when you come to deliver a service. And it's about joining all of those together with, so you've got artificial intelligence and actual intelligence, humans, involved in delivering the service, but in a really smooth and joined up way.
So an example? Can you give
an
example?
An example. So we've got, one of our big customers is Ernst Young. So whenever a new customer comes along to Ernst Young, they have to make that customer jump through a huge number of hoops. Yeah, they have to validate that Ernst Young is sufficiently independent from them, and they're not auditing either that company or any company that one of the directors is another director of. All sorts of things. It's a very complicated service before you can even become a customer. Now, all of that end-to-end process, where you've got that request coming in from the customer, where you have humans validating some of that request, and then you have AIs going off and looking up underlying data from, for example, the company's house system in the UK and all of the other similar systems, global geographies, to then analyze are we okay to work with this client? And then communicating all that back to the client and the partner who's responsible for that client to go, yeah, you're okay to do business with them.
Oh yeah.
So managing that workflow from end to end and all of its little complexities, all of that happens inside Enate.
That's interesting. It's about huge amounts of data. People could do it, but AI is much better at it. I think
Yeah.
that's
And
yeah.
and the reality is, when we first engaged with with Ernst Young on that, people were doing all of it.
Mm.
And that's something that's really important about the transition to using AI. It's not a big bang thing. Yeah. It's not a some bit of AI comes along and we just switch it on and piff paff poof magic happens. Yeah. It is a slow progression. Yeah. You take individual bits of the work out and you go, no, it's okay for this specific AI to do that specific bit of work as long as it is appropriately supported by a human.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
So
that
that
sounds.
principle is all about what we did, that transition. Yeah. And the answer to what can I automate today is different to the answer that I would have given a month ago, is different to the answer that I will give it in another month's time. Yeah. So that's a real change for lots of people deploying technology. Yeah, the old-fashioned way of deploying technology was, well, we go and build a system. We get a bunch of geeks to come and build us a system. Yeah, and then when that system's finished, then the geeks leave, and that's how the system then stays for 10 years, 15 years, 20
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
Yeah, and it gets progressively yet less useful, worse, etc. We have to move on from that world. Yeah, we have to move into that world where you're changing stuff every month to make things a little bit better. It's that manufacturing Kaizen principle. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually the dynamics. That leads me to the question, what got you interested in AI?
Uh, so what got me interested in AI was actually trying to think deeply about its usefulness and potential. So customers have, always talked about, I want to automate this, I want to automate that. Yeah. But I really started getting interested in AI when actually it became useful. I'm a real pragmatist. Yeah. So I'm not a person that goes, look, I'm going to go and do a whole bunch of esoteric research. I want to deal with things when they become genuinely useful to solve genuine problems for people that I work with and I care about. Yeah. So about 2017 is when I started to see genuine usefulness in a small number of use cases. Yeah. And then drew out a slightly crazy diagram to go, right, what would be my guesses from now for the next 10 years as to how what was useful in 2017 then grows and changes so that it becomes dramatically more useful by 2027. Yeah. And that's the trajectory we're on. Yeah. In 2017, if you looked at how any company delivers a service, there were maybe like two things. Yeah. There were two human capabilities that you could automate a bit of. Yeah. So you could, there is a human capability that is around just being able to follow rules and type stuff. Yeah. It's pretty basic capability. It's not what to write home about, but you could successfully automate some of that. Yeah. But you couldn't automate reading and understanding information. You couldn't automate writing responses. You couldn't automate communicating in real time with somebody. Vast amounts of delivering the service you couldn't. But as time has changed over that 10-year period, we've seen, you can do slightly more and slightly more and slightly more. And my hunch in 2017 was you're going to need something to join these things together so that you can manage that transition. And so you can manage, okay, this is what I can do now. And this is how I need to switch in and out from human world to digital world and back. So that's when I got interested. Pragmatism, when it became useful.
That is really interesting, because that leads to to totally segues into the next question, because you talk a lot to people from the business world.
Mm-hmm.
You were interested in AI to help it, but how do you see that the other people that you talk to, your potential clients, are they really interested? Do they have to adopt AI? Do they want to adopt AI? Do they even know about AI?
So we are well past the do they even know about it stage, at least. Yeah. So that is something that has changed radically in the last 2 years. Yeah. That is the chat GPT mode.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's gone, oh, crikey, I understand. We better think about this properly. So we're past that. Everybody, literally everybody, wants to do something with it. Almost nobody is successfully doing anything with AI at scale. Yeah. Now, some of this comes down to IT departments, things like that. Yeah. So I wrote a blog article last week, going in the AI journal, saying why your IT department should not be responsible for deploying AI.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
And it's because they don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And the entire history of the technology industry has been about black and white. Test pass, test fail.
Mm-hmm.
The result is brown cat. The actual result is brown cat. Test pass. If the actual result is cat that is brown, test fail. But we're moving into this world where we have to understand AI is non-deterministic. Yeah. What that means is you put one input in, sometimes you get a different output. The output probably means the same thing. It has the same idea behind it. It has the same gist. Yeah. But the words aren't identical.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely antithetical to how technologists think traditionally. Yeah. So, but it is perfectly normal how every human actually thinks.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the barriers is getting the geeks over that hump. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I say that because I will quite happily self-classify as a geek. One of the other challenges is people don't know where to start. Yeah. And I think there's a really simple way of thinking about this, which is look at people's job titles. Yeah. And if somebody's job title or job description includes something like write or create or build or develop, then for those people, you can give them access to and you can deploy AI tools to support them with almost zero risk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because everything that, if I'm writing something, yeah, then I'm still accountable for writing it.
Mm.
The output that I publish is going to be from me. And very often, if it's something that you're going to publish, yeah, I write it, somebody else reviews it, somebody else edits it. You've got a quality chain that comes after it.
Yeah.
So almost everything in that write, build, create space has got a quality chain that is human-based that comes after the initial creation. And that entire quality chain still stays there. So that's why there's almost no risk. You've got all the same QC. You're just about making people more productive. Yeah. So that's why my developers in my company, there are whole teams where the foundational rule is the first cut of your code, comes by you working with AI. Yeah. And then we've got 7 stages of, further development, unit testing, 7 stages of testing come after that. Yeah. So it's not like we're unleashing the AI beast to the world. So those job titles, create, build, write. You can just get going.
Oh yeah, that's nice input. Yeah, because this is an assistant role, and there's always a human controlling. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the flip side of that is, if people's roles include words like deliver, execute, those kind of words, now that tends to mean that they're working somehow inside some kind of structured process, and actually they're accountable for a bit of it, and then just moves. So when we're into the kind of service delivery world that I work in, whether it's in accounting, whether it's in back office processing, whether it's in knowledge services, and those are things where there is less of that built-in quality chain. So that's where you need to deploy what I call systemic AI. Yeah. So the stuff for people with create, build, that's co-piloting AI, and the stuff for people in that execute, deliver space is systemic AI. And to support that, you need to make sure that it's working within a framework. And so we call it orchestration, which is this idea of a workflow that's controlled within a system where the humans work and the digital workers work, and you have an audit trail and a control mechanism for all of that, for controlling the AI within that and controlling the human quality within it. Yeah. So that's the key in that space. What you need to do is get your orchestration correct first. So you have a well-controlled and orchestrated human delivery. And then you go through systemically going, we're going to switch this bit from human to digital. And this is my human control that's going to be around it. Yeah. So one of my team has a great way of describing this, which is first, you need to lay train tracks. Then you need to make sure your train tracks are really strong. And then you can start running bullet trains. Yeah. So without really solid train tracks in that kind of service delivery world, without really good orchestration, you can't start just automating stuff. You can't start just deploying AI, because you will screw up. You will embarrass yourselves.
Oh yeah.
It will go wrong. Yeah.
I think that's great. Yeah, that's actually, I think, really helpful for the listeners, because many of them are at that point where they say where to start, how to start, and actually you wanted to talk about think that is probably more like down to the level of the individual one. How should people approach asking AI questions? I mean, the basic level.
So this is something that I've observed with my customers. So whether I'm interacting with an IT department or the business users or something like that. So the smart people have got to grips with the idea that they go, look, I am choosing a product to help me get AI operationalized. So that's the first thing. This is not stuff you're going to go and build. Choose the right product and you think that's the one that works. Yeah. But then there's a lot of confusion about how do I ask people with AI products questions about their product? Yeah. So I'll give you an example from a conversation I was having recently. Yeah, where we were talking about some AI that we have within our product, which is for categorizing inbound communication, so emails, text messages and stuff, and sentiment analyzing them. Yeah. Is this person happy, sad, or just okay? Yeah. And their question was, so if the question they asked is, well, if it's not accurate, do you train the system more on what we're processing so that it gets better? Yeah. Now, actually what they were trying to ask is, if it's not very good, how does it get better? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as you start throwing in words like training, yeah, that has a really specific technical meaning. Yeah. So generally, when you're going through that process of trying to figure out what product or products to buy, yeah, ask questions in the simplest possible terms that you can. Don't try and throw technical language in there, yeah, because you might not get the answer that you want. Yeah. So, and I'm going to hit on this one about training specifically. Yeah. So, in the olden days, 2 years ago, data science and machine learning, a huge amount of the effort and the focus was on training. And what that means is you have to assemble a whole raft of data. You have to clean it, prepare it, shape it, etc. And then you push that through a training process to create a dedicated AI model for some purpose. Yeah. And then if it's not very good, and you create some more data, shape it, yeah, and then you retrain it. Yeah. Now, when I say that's the olden days, so we've subsequently had very kind people like the OpenAI team, like the Llama team of Facebook, yeah, go and do that work, do that creating data, preparing data, shaping data work on pretty much the entire internet, and use that to train AI. Yeah. So, and what that means is that the entire internet effectively gets compressed down into this little model. That's how ChatGPT can answer questions for you, is because it has a sort of compressed view of the entire internet. Yeah. That's kind of what training is. Training is compressing stuff down into the model. Yeah. Yeah. Just like as humans, we experience the world, and our memories are the compression of that world into our brain. That's what's happening when you train AI. Now, it's great that they've done that. It makes it very powerful data. And so you've got a kind of brain there now that you can feed data into. And the more data you feed into it in the prompt, in the question, the better answers it can give you. But what almost nobody should be thinking about doing anymore is training their own AI models. Because it's kind of like the OpenAI team. Yeah, they are the Olympic athletes of data science. They are the best of the best. They are very, very exceptional in their ability. Yeah. Whereas most of the rest of us, and I include myself in this camp, when our teams try and add training data into those models, guess what? We are the equivalent of, slightly overweight, middle-aged men. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are now trying to do stuff with the Olympic athletes. We're not, we can't keep up. We don't do a good job of it. So the evidence now shows that mostly you do not need to train models specifically. Mostly you can deal with push the data in through the prompt and then just deal with the outcome. And the reason that's really important comes down to one of the things that the IT people actually have a good point about, which is security. Yeah. So if I'm using let's say I'm using my customer data to train, to add training data to a model, one thing that would be really, really bad would be if data from one of my customers ended up popping out in front of data from another one of my customers, in front of one of my other customers. Both parties would be pretty pissed off about that. But because training is about creating that compression, you don't know what is being compressed. So you don't know if actually some data from one client that shouldn't appear in front of another client has been compressed in there, unless you have been ridiculously stringent about the cleansing of that data before you pass it in for the training.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that risk of you screwing it up by something popping out in front of somebody else, is it should just be outweighed by you don't need to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't need to do it. So when it comes to talking to product companies about how do you make the results better if they're not very good, just ask questions in those terms. And they should tell you about, well, this is how we do prompt engineering. This is how we do validation of output as underlying models change over time. All sorts of stuff like that. But they probably shouldn't talk to you about training.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And the only thing might be, did I understand that right? This security issue. I mean,
So as soon as you get into training, you need to be super focused on security. That's so broadly, I'm saying, assume that for 95% of business use cases, training is not a thing. Don't talk to people about it. Don't ask for it. Don't think about doing it. Because you will screw up on security. You will not get better results because you're not an Olympic athlete in data science. You will actually get better results if you focus on just prompting correctly and just getting the data in correct.
Great. Yeah. That is actually a thing that is on my mind all the time. What should one do? And in for our listeners and our prep talk, we talked about betting on the European Championship. And it seems that ChatGPT already has all the data it needs to make really great prognosis. This episode will air after the championship. Maybe in one of the later ones I will report about the results if we were right. But it seems to be exactly the point. The data is already there. It's just a matter of asking the right questions there, right prompts.
Exactly. I think the best way of thinking of most of the large language models is to go, I have a bright graduate student sitting next to me now. That they are academically excellent. They have sucked up quite a lot of subject matter. But they don't have any of my sort of business contextual subject matter stuff like that. So my job, just like if I had a bright graduate student sitting next to me, is feed a bunch of my business context into them. But the great stuff about that is I can do that. You can even have that just saved up as, here's a whole bunch of standard business context from me that I want to send in as part of my prompt stream, so that I'm preparing the model for the questions I really want to get the answers to. So that approach, it's already got a massive amount of data. It's got a big brain. That data compressed is very strong.
Totally
just give the extra context.
And then the
just give me the extra context, like in your betting one, of right, who is in the finals? Who did they beat along the way? Stuff like that.
Exactly. How many goals did they need, and how in which situations? And ChatGPT says Spain wins, but let's see.
I was going to say, I think most of the world says Spain wins. Fingers crossed.
Okay. We'll see. I don't take sides here. No, the betting topic is one that leads me to one thing where I'm really interested in. Do you probably also use ChatGPT? What is your use case? What do you love most about ChatGPT? What is your...
So I use GPT for writing code. I use GPT for sometimes for comparative analysis. Of different sets of information, and I just want to go, just give me some variances, some talking points between these two. I sometimes use it for the kind of the initial search is in an esoteric kind of space, where I'm trying to find out something very specific. and I don't want to go through a whole bunch of product documentation to find it. Yeah. So that kind of working with where we're working with competitor products or partner products, going, I want to understand if their product does this. Yeah. That's a really common use case. It's in the, I can't be asked to spend the time going through their website. Yeah. Google isn't going to give me the fine-grained response that I want. Yeah. So those are my most common use cases. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. The code writer, I'm not a code writer, so I'm not in that camp, but who knows? Maybe it comes now with ChatGPT and
well, there are. I read a blog article by somebody a couple of weeks ago going that does AI mean the death of SaaS companies because everybody will just get an AI to write them their own custom. Yeah. Personally, I think that's crazy, and that's probably not going to be the case, because just because you can write a system, as I very often say to my development team, coding is really simple. Coding is really simple. You can teach anyone to code. The really hard thing is figuring out what code to write.
Yeah.
And that's not something that you can just go, just gonna give. Yeah.
It's quite interesting because it comes back to the topic, how to ask the right questions to the AI. I mean, people say prompt engineering is a kind of programming. So it's always like in programming, it's always about the right question, the focus on the real problem. Yeah.
Yeah. So the things that we see is very relevant in that space are, and it's interesting that across my team, it's something that we see software developers are not very good at it. Yeah. Because they try and talk to it like something that's going to work algorithmically. Yeah. And guess what? That's not how it works. Yeah. You asking yourself the question, is that how I would explain it to a human? Pretty good place to start, because if you're not talking to it how you would explain it to a human or ask a human to do something, then you're not going to get the right results, because the entirety of the underlying model and then the chat GPT layer on top of the underlying model is about behaving in a way that you'd have a conversation with a human. Yeah. So describing things in a way that you would actually ask a human to do it is really important. Yeah. Sometimes explaining concepts, yeah, and what you mean by that concept in this specific place is really important. Yeah. So yeah, I was seeing one of my team recently doing something where they go, well, just take the bit to the left of the decimal. Yeah. Now, actually, decimal and decimal point have different meanings in different cultures. Yeah. And it's one of those things where sometimes you need to be really specific in if there is a word that you're expecting it to comprehend and use in a particular way, it can be really helpful just to lay out that concept really clearly for that particular piece of processing, for that particular prompt. Yeah. So those are a couple of things that we see, and the persona setup is also really critical. Yeah. So actually doing all of the work, don't just find the question in, do the work beforehand. Yeah. To go, this is how I want you to behave. Do I want you to behave like a 3-year-old child, or do I want you to behave like God level program? Yeah. Or do I want you to behave like an accountant, or do I want you to behave like a lawyer, or just like one of the public, or a poet? Yeah. Actually shaping that, and again shaping some of the concepts that you want that to support before you start going in with questions, really important thing.
Yeah. And that luckily that comes back to us humans still being at the steering wheel, and we have to ask the right questions. The AI will do whatever we tell it, but if we don't tell ask the right questions, we don't get the right results. Yeah, that is really.
Yeah, and actually, in the spaces where you're trying to, so the work that we do, yeah, and the work that our customers are trying to do with Enate and AI within Enate can be quite complicated things. So, we work, a client recently came to us and said, look, we've got $120 million on our balance sheet that we can't spend because we have not figured out how we legitimately got this money. Yeah. We haven't been able to trace it back to all the invoices or credits or whatever that means this money is in our bank account. Therefore, we can't spend it. Yeah. And so they said, can you help us with this? But this is a big tech company that has developers up the Yahoo. They got thousands of developers that could focus on it. But actually, it comes down to, so yeah, it's a great use case for AI and for using the underlying large language models and the analysis parts of those models. But you cannot just go, here is a vast quantity of data and here is a whole bunch of rules and policies, go and apply them. You have to do a whole bunch of good human problem solving stuff to go, right, here is a big problem. Break that big problem down into lots of little problems. And then, right, let's solve this problem. Then the next, then the next, then the next, then the next. And as if by magic, at that point, you've solved all of them. So that human problem solving context, you need to do that when you're doing complicated things with AI. Well. And actually that means that for those complicated things, it's very difficult to do those without orchestration. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, you need something to go, here's the first bit, take the output from the first bit, send it into the next bit, put a human in the loop if the next bit doesn't give you the right answer.
Yeah. I mean, the significance, 120 million, that shows you the significance of the problem. So it's not like, what's the capital of Kenya? It's like,
it is. Please get this 120 million quid so that I can spend it. Non-trivial.
Yeah. So because already humans sat there and tried to figure it out and they couldn't. So that's the next thing where I can help with the data, but ask the right question. Actually, that's really great because that is, again, next, the segue into my last question today, because it seems the humans are still important, but I love to ask this question of a Terminator or Matrix scenario. Do you think we humans are in a zoo in 10 years and the AI rule the world, or we get extinct, or we have Matrix?
So it is not something that we should treat lightly. There is genuine risk in that space. I actually don't think it's the most important risk we should focus on at the moment. Yeah. Personally, I think the most important risks that we should focus on at the moment are the disinformation and misinformation risks around democracy and around the elections that are happening at the moment. I think it's interesting to be reading this morning the amount of mechanically generated, AI generated misinformation that has flooded the French election, flooded parts of the British election. Yeah. Very significant, very high risk. Yeah. So my view is that's the first threat that we should deal with. The second threat that we should deal with is the economic threat. Yeah. So there is an existential problem around how capitalism works. Yeah. If capitalism throughout the last, several centuries has worked by there being a balance between, if you had capital, you needed workers, labor, so that you could get a return on your capital. Yeah. Those two were in balance. And then unions and labor law and all sorts of things manage that balance. Yeah. But as we move into a space where you can get a return on your capital without needing labor, that creates a bit of a problem with that balance. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. And then if we figure,
So,
that's great. I thank you for the perspective that helped me figure out things in my head as well. Because focus on what's at hand and what's the problem at hand, but not forget about that there is a risk, but focus at the
yeah,
imminent risks. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, it's not a super happy answer. It's not
yeah.
it's all peachy. Yeah. So there is stuff to do on that space. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's great. That's actually, And then we had some elections and they were influenced. The US election is coming, talking about that and getting the people AI literate and that they understand what they see might be AI generated. People try to believe what they want to believe and that they ask questions and those things. I think that's really important. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, thank you for the answer. But before we close, can you tell us where we can find you? We will put everything in the show notes. And so where can they find you? Where can they find
So
Enate?
you can find me as Kit Cox, KITCOX on LinkedIn. I have a conveniently simple name that not many other people have. That's if you want to get in touch with me, come through LinkedIn. That'd be amazing. And you can find my company at Enate, ENATE.io.
Great. Thank you for the interview. And it was a pleasure talking to you. And I learned a lot. And people, that's it for today. And thank you again for Kit.
Pleasure, Dietmar. It's lovely talking to you. Thank you so much.
I hope you learned a lot with Kit Cox, and the contacts I will put in the show notes, like I said. And next time, Professor Jeppard will be here again talking to you. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and to the newsletter, argo.berlin/newsletter, to get all the information and the new episodes. Until next time, Dietmar from argo.berlin.